Hi, welcome to Angel Theory Paradigm Shift and a brief aside as we examine the Sienna equilibrium spreadsheet. Okay, this is a little bit, did this a while ago, so it's not going to be completely smooth, so we're just going to try and get the basics here. Now, let's just start up here with company income. This is 2024, and half of the investment that will come from various sources, we'll talk about that at another point, is just under 2.7 billion. That is split between 16 industry sectors. Okay, there is the same amount, another 2.7 billion, so a total investment of about 5.4 billion. And the second half of that first batch of investment, or actually second batch of investment, because there is equal investment to that in the years building up to 2024. This is all to be spent in 2024. Half of it on 16 industry sectors. What would that be? That's it's a quarter of it. Yep, a quarter of it will be spent on infrastructure. 1/8 will be government income, and 1/8 will be land assets and other acquisitions. You know, these are just starter figures. These are just starts. Okay, let's have a look at the 16 different sectors thought of so far. Of course, this is, you know, as I have said, this is a joint exercise. I've just set out the starting points. Okay, so property, developer, and land, and let's just have a look at here. This is the figure that I've worked out, the tender figure. This is the amount of income from that investment that will go to each individual company sector. Now, obviously, they're all going to be slightly different and have, you know, different figures, but they all have to coincide to figures in here. This is POP dimensions, and you can see it starts at 1 cent, times by 8 for 8 cents, times by 8 for 64, times by 8 for 512, and we start at the D1 dimension, which is the lowest annual wage possible. Well, actually, you know, it can be lower, but that's pretty average in Malawi, for instance, and each time we multiply by 8, and, you know, on it goes. So if we see here, we've multiplied it by, well, we're now in D6, 10.7 million, and we just double that for 21. Doubling it still fits inside the cube. It's all supposed to fit inside a nice cube, so it's all even, and any profit made above this point starts making a new cube. POP principle. Okay, rounding errors, chaos theory. Where were we? Okay, so there we go. That's where we get this 21 figure for. And this is money that will come to the company regardless of extra trades that it may do. This is just the tender income, and it's very important that one appreciates that this tender income, it will make profit. You know, the company's going to do its thing, and it's going to pay its wages, it's going to pay its suppliers, it's also going to make profit. So these companies, there's no way this company, unless there's an earthquake or something like that, which we do have to consider, but fortunately Malawi's not near any fault lines that I know, and certainly is in no worry of having a tsunami. There's no volcanoes there, so, you know. But, you know, if bad things happen, for me right now, there's no water in Cape Town, and I'm getting no money from Cape Town, and that's my primary source of income. In fact, it's my only source of income. So, you know, look, we can't account for acts of God, but what we can do is say, if there is no act of God, all these companies are going to make profit, because out of this 21 million cash flow that they receive, once the wages have been taken out, in fact there are no wages, there's just profit share. Once all that's been taken out, there's going to be profit. What is a mystery is how much profit that company is going to make from selling to companies outside of the network. That's all bonus profit, basically. Okay, so we've got, let's go through these 16 industry sectors: property, developer, and labour, building supplies, manufactured, Interiors, number 3, interiors, shopping, kitchens, bathrooms. Number 4, electronics and computers. Number 5, financial services. Number 6, Tesla Africa and other transports. Cross fingers, Elon Musk, come on, join the club. You're going to love S-World UCS. Number 7, education, universities, operations centres. All much the same thing, actually. And number 8, industry, chemicals, engineering, other. Number 9, packaging, warehouses, waste. Now, obviously, all this packaging is going to be done in a biodegradable way. I've just seen this beautiful thing in South Africa where a supermarket has made their plastic bags disposable. They do the plastic bag, then you just put them in the compost and they melt away. It's brilliant. So that's the sort of thing we'll be doing there. Sector 10, food, agriculture and water. Sector 11, pharmaceuticals and healthcare. Sector 12, general goods, malls and stores and eating out. Sector 11, film, luxuries, concierge and brand Malawi. Number 15, media, internet, news, TV, sport, ads. Number 16, travel, real estate and vacation rentals. Number 16 is the software that we are creating. The TBS, Total Business Systems, the VSN, Virtual Social Network, UCS Simulator. Full name is actually Universal Colonization Simulator, but right now we're just looking at Mars in 2048. Okay, and the Susskind Boost and the Pete Tent. Right, so, and then of these sectors, I've then put how many different companies in that sector we should create. So, for instance, property, developer and labour, 20 different companies, whereas building suppliers, 8, shops, interior fittings, shop fittings, etc., 4, and you can see it there. And this creates a total figure. And it also creates a personnel figure. Basically, roughly for each one of those companies, there'll be about 80 personnel, roughly, if that, and that's what $21 million is going to support. And so there we go, the actual personnel per category, 1,600 in property development and labour. What I've done here is one of many what I call give half back exercises, which is no small item because give half back is the first chapter of the first book. It's not ready yet, and it's for very much for Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, and of course for Thomas Piketty, who inspired quite a lot of this, or maybe even all of the little things like this. For every 4 personnel any company pays, there must be a municipal personnel. So which I think is about right. I've done a bit of research, and for every 4 people working in the UK, there seems to be about 4 people working in municipal positions. Okay, what have we got here? We've got infrastructure income. Now that's basically the same as what we've seen above. But number 17 is SURE's Super University Resort Hospitals. That's building hospitals, basically. 18 is the internet, solar arrays and installation. And whilst that says 16 there would actually be an awful lot more of that. Environmental, changing the environments, building lakes, hills, forests, safaris. Building industry, factories, machinery, number 21. Roads, highways, mass transit. Not really doing a lot of that in the early stages. 22. Waterworks, pipes and sanitation. 23. Mining, quarries from the ground. 24. Universities, building the marina, building mall infrastructure. And these all come to a certain price, and they have their personnel, and we get the municipal personnel from them. And lastly, no, not lastly, there's government income, which is currently at in this spreadsheet, which has been, there are better ideas now. The government income is now a quarter, not 1/8. The building of network cities, that also is now something that would be done by people like the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund or Harvard Equity, Harvard Equity, or the many sovereign wealth funds. Anyway, solar, more solar, healthcare, more healthcare, sports and education, and lastly, buying of land, buying of companies or merging companies that exist, um, buying assets and resources, and other. And that's basically covers the, that's what the investment in 2024, which is this figure here times 2. Let's just find it on the POP dimensions. Where is it? It'll be half. There we go. It's a D9 investment. 5.497 billion, 558 million, and 100. No, sorry. Let's just say it's 5.497 billion. Just 5.5 billion. 5.5 billion. Okay, there we go. Big number, but that's actually split between 64 and this is going to be dealt with in another video. If I go into it now, we're going down a quagmire that's going to lose track of what we're actually trying to achieve from this video presentation of this spreadsheet, the Sienna equilibrium. And we can see here, Nobel presentation. This is the thing that really is essential to the mechanism. Includes res, a more creative capitalism, and the GDP game. Okay, so we have seen how we are going to split this $5.5 billion investment in 2024 when the same amount of money has been spent leading up to it, basically creating all of these companies in the first place. Okay, now I go here into a little bit of income that can be made, but this has now been superseded, so I'm just going to completely ignore it. And we're going to go to here, ender controller, start of company, start of sector, company goes, turnover goes to. Start of this. So all of these sectors, we're now going to drill down to one of them, and I think we're drilling down to a property developer and labor sector. Let's just have a look. And we've got to go right now. And we come to the next part of the spreadsheet. Okay, so it's sector 20, building industry, factories, and machinery. Okay, been a while. I mean, it's about half a year, I think, since I made this. I think so. Okay, so what have we got here? Let's just work this out together. I think we're now dividing the total income. The total income. Is that what the total income is? Where's total income? Okay, there's the sector income. No, that's not the sector income. Yes. Yeah. Okay, there's the sector income per sector, 21 million. And there's a 20, which I believe is for, there are 20 of them. So, well, it should really have a, let's just put it here for now, equals that times that. Okay. Actually, we're going to have to do a little bit of working out here. What is this? It is, okay, so it's one individual company's income, and I've then divided it by 13% to show how much of that individual company income in a year, the tender income, not the extra income from making extra sales. This is just purely sales that are preordained. They have been mapped out years before. This will specifically be spent in this way in this year. Okay, so we've got of one individual company in one individual sector, 13% goes to labor. Now that might sound low, but actually there's a profit share at the end where half of the profit goes to labor as well, and that makes up a lot more. Now we can find that in this here. TWF, UCS, MZ, Tensors. Right, so let's have a look. So we've divided, and let's just carry on down here. So there's labor is 13%. Building supplies manufactured is 2%. Land 1%. Interiors and bathrooms, shop fittings. Oh, okay, what I'm doing now is I'm going through all of the other sectors, seeing how much money is spent from this sector in the other sectors. Real estate, we've put that in there. This company is going to buy some real estate as an asset, and that asset actually becomes part of the pension of the Malawians who are working. Again, this sort of goes to this spreadsheet. It's a newer idea from Piketty. I didn't really have any idea for pensions at all. But basically, let's just swap over here. Let's quickly swap over here and let's have a very, very quick look at this. Okay, so this is the idea for one company, and we can see okay, here we are seeing tender profits, and here we are seeing additional profits, making for total profit in 2024 of 7.9 million. Now, the POP point for this company is 4 million. So all of the profit above that 4 million must be invested into a new company, or companies, or investment in general. And the personnel who were there when this POP investment is made own half of that POP investment. Half of the new investment is owned by the personnel in their pensions. They can only take it out and it becomes a pension for them. General note as well, of the profit that the company can use pre-POP, half what goes to the Spartan personnel, and inside of this we also see quite a lot of this money being split between their families or people they know. It's generally for each staff member there's about 8, maybe, or even 16 people who get paid to either do sports or do education in building for the future, basically. So that's that 50%. This used to be 50% to bondholders. It's not anymore at all. I'm not using this model. There are no bondholders. This is now S-World money. The investment is paid back each year by giving 12.5% to the investors in network credits, which have to be spent, basically dollars that have to be spent with one or another company in Malawi, and that may rise to 25% per year. And basically what we're doing there is every investor basically becomes a business, and we pay basically their expenses each year, or a part of their expenses from that from that investment at 12.5%, or going up to 25%. When we get to the res equation part of this, we'll see how that can actually I look for ways to spend the money. It's like, right, we got all this money, where are we going to spend it? So, well, we could either spend 12.5% of it on the initial companies who invested, so as they're getting 12.5%, or we could even go 25%. But there are other things to spend money on. So, look, the point is 25%, 50% of the profit goes to the Spartan personnel. Spartans are any personnel in Malawi, and 50% is saved now by S-World, sworld.org, or however we structure it, and that basically becomes a form of gold standard, as S-World owns owns all of the companies that are created in Malawi, in essence, although 50% of whatever profit goes to goes to the personnel. The other 50% is owned by swell.org, in whatever structure that is created. And that becomes the assets of the network, which act as a gold standard. And at some point, we'll work out we can only expand to a point that the gold standard is 12.5% of all the potential income, all the potential companies that we are making, something like that. Anyway, okay, so let's just switch back here. Okay, so this example here, real estate being bought by the profits, that real estate will be half pension for the workers. It seems obscure, but it's actually very clever. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. And it's motivating. It's motivating all of those, all the staff of all the companies to not only do as well as they can because they're 50% profit share, but also their pensions are being made from the additional profit that is made. Okay, let's just, so we're looking at this. So 7% is going to be spent on real estate, 20% is going to be spent on machinery supplies because it's the building industry. They want a lot of tractors and all sorts of things like that. So 25% is spent there. Industry, chemicals, etc., packaging, goods bought at stores, internet, solar, electronics, Tesla, buying some electronic cars. This is 2% going to the film industry. That's there to promote the Malawi and everything that we're doing. 1% to media, news, 1% to travel, 3% to environmental, 1% to waterworks, 1% highways and roads. What's this? This is POP, profit invested by SWell bond owners. This seems to be another investment. Jolly good. Profit share for Spartan. To be honest with you, I am not 100% what these brown things are. I'm sure they'll make sense eventually. Here we have the 3.3%. It should be 3.14. It's probably, yeah, well, 3.125. This is important because this is the income for the software, which is in turn divided between the TBS, the VSN, TBS, Total Business System, VSN, Virtual Social Network, UCS, Universal Coordination Simulator, and S-World Films. But now there is a subdivision within that for the new systems, the BES systems, Behavioral Economic Systems. But this is how the income, where the income comes from. And 3.125% doesn't sound like a lot, but when we're talking in this scale of, this isn't just one sector, there's many companies in each sector, and there's 32 sectors. And then there can be 32 different countries. It's a lot of money. The Susskind Boost and the Peak Tent, that's where this is basically money put aside for companies who are doing badly that need to be boosted back. This is just making sure the weakest companies don't fail, and generally trying to create a worst winner scenario, so everyone's winning, but the winner who's not actually winning as much as the rest gets a little bit of boost. Education, healthcare, financial services, other, very small other, should be much bigger. Anyway, that comes to 100%. And as we go through, we just look at this labor. What do we got here? And then there's 16 companies in this sector. So we're turnover after E and companies per sector. Okay, well that's basically just telling us how much we've got to spend, and then we divide it by food, entertainment, which is none, which I don't understand why that's none. I think maybe I put it in somewhere else. Housing, 40%. That's a stipulation of the Spartan contract. And you can see, we can see the Spartan contracts go all the way back to American Butterfly. Let's just move this out of the way. American Butterfly, and the theory of more than we know now, Spartan Contracts. Basically, it's a contract, 16-year contract between the personnel and S-World that we build them a house over 16 years or sooner, and at the end of the 16 years they keep the house. If they leave before the 16 years, they don't keep the house, and they can have years and years off, and they can travel the world working the same. It's trying to make it so as if I was a builder, that's how I would like my work contract to be. I'd like to be able to follow the sun. I'd like to be able to take years off. I'd certainly want to have a home at the end of it, or even halfway through it. If you start this at 18, by the age of 34, you'll own your own house. Okay, so 40% goes to housing. 10% goes to cars. For each house that is created in S-World, there is always an electronic car that comes with it, or 2 electronic cars. Basically, 6.25% of the value of the house in electronic cars. That way, we don't have to encourage people to buy cars. They get them, and they're all over the place. So adoption of electronic cars becomes a lot more prevalent. Prolific, maybe a better word. Not okay. And other. Okay, so there we're seeing how the money in this is in this band, this labour band of this sector, and what it's spent on. And now we go over here, and this is very important, because now we judge it by the amount of output. So, for instance, buying food, agriculture, and water are all end suppliers. For an individual person buying food, that's it. They're buying it. That's GDP. That's GDP right there. So I better explain this. It comes from David A. Moss's book, Macroeconomics, Concise Guide for Macroeconomics. Sorry, David. And it basically says that only final well, there's actually 3 ways to do it, but the main way is to calculate it by only the final output is GDP, and the supplies to making that output is not GDP. So there's no supplies. This is all an individual will buy food, the individual will drink water, and the individual will so all of the money spent there is output. What else have we got? Entertainment. What have we got here? Property developer and land. That is buying the end house. So that is all output. Tesla buying cars. That is all output. Other, well, we don't know about that, so I put it as 50-50. If we go down, however, and just look at the next column, which is, what is it? Building supplies manufactured. We can see here, this is output 0, because this is all being a part of something else that is to be made. Mining, same thing. And we can see we go through all of the different options. I've assigned each a different output. And when we add it all up at the end, we get what I call the David A. Moss cash flow to GDP variable, or DC. I can't even remember the acronym. Right, anyway, 66.163% of cash flow ends up as output in this scenario. Now, of course, this is just one, but it's going to be roughly about there, I think. There's the software, and just when it comes to building software, anything that goes on a spreadsheet is very, very, very easy to make into a software program. All of this I can make. I don't need anyone to help me other than programmers. Not to say that other people can't help. Of course they can, But I'm just saying that this isn't creating. The idea isn't to create software that is like out of the world. This software, this is the This is the system architecture for how the software will work. And of course, instead of just having the one sector, we'll have gone through all 32 sectors and we'll have seen what the David Amos cash flow variable is for all of the sectors. Right, now we're going to come on to the next part of the Sienna equilibrium, which I've only just started. Once I got to this point, I think I realized I really needed to work on, where's the next section? Okay, here we go. And it's you know, I've really just started this, and the idea here is that for each sector, so we've got sector 1, property developer, sector 2, interiors, sector 3. Well, that's the idea. Is from here we look specifically at the money that has been spent by one sector going to all the other sectors. And the reason for this is that it shows the E in the res equation. Revenue times efficiency times spin. The initial revenue, in this case the investment, times by the efficiency. And what this spreadsheet will show, and I think has already shown, but this next section scrutinizes it. What this shows is that when the cash flow is spent with the property developer, for instance, how all the money, and we can see how all that cash flow ends up at one, and we can see it actually, you know, just simply seeing it here, we can see that all the cash flow, in fact, this is 100% E. This is E at 100%. So every single penny spent here by this company goes to one or another SWOL company or member of personnel. Okay? And we can see it. 13% of it goes to labor, 2% goes there. There is no money at all wasted in this scenario. Every single dollar of this initial spend, or it might be that divided by 8 because we're working over 8 spins in a year, or that divided by 12 if we're working from 12 spins, every dollar spent here is spent on another company. So when we spin, when we say, let's just do it by month and say in January, let's just do a little quick divide by 12 equals that. Divide by 12. Say in January, 1.7, let's call it 1.8 million was given in cash flow to the property developer, the property developer company in the sector. At the end of that month, they will have sold and bought. They would have given this money will have been divided by all of these different sectors. And once that money has, and in each case, they will have received the industry that they need, the machinery, the items that they need to continue the next month are all provided because they're bought, they're paid for. Here's money paid for that. Here's money paid for that. And the next month it starts again because these companies who have been paid roughly equally, so as they all end up with pretty much the same amount of money at the end of the month. And they can then spend that money again. It's cash. You can consider it as cash dollars. At the end of one month of all of these, this company spending its money on all the other companies in the network, all the other companies in the network collectively have that money and they can spend it again. And this is the res equation, the S in the res equation, the spin, is that each month, once all that money is spent and it's gone to all the other companies, it can be spent again. And it can be spent again. And it can be spent again. As many times as it is spent in a year increases the investment, so if you spin 12 times and you had let's just say $1 billion in investment, if you spin that 12 times, you have $12 billion in cash flow paid for goods that are made each month and paid to personnel who spend their money on items that are made by the network. Of course, this is completely the opposite of what is legal in terms of antitrust and monopolies, but that's not a good rule if it's inhibiting something like this. And there's no way, considering the amount of tax income, or sorry, amount of income that the Malawian government can get to spend on its citizens, that they're going to mind just doing away with the antitrust law that 99.9% of the people on this planet have no idea what it means. Anyway, this Sienna equilibrium spreadsheet is showing us how one spin works. Here's how one spin works. This is how the money is going to be spent, and the money is going to end up with all of these different companies just spending it on each other. All of these different companies in all of these different sectors will just spend the money on each other, and because of that, each month they can spend that initial investment again and again. So from 1 billion in investment, 12 billion in cash flow. And what does that make for GDP? We've been through this, so we know that output is 66.163%. And so we multiply. So say, for instance, we had 1 billion in investment. That was times by 12 for 12 spins. So 12 billion. We then have to divide that by 66%. Let's just do that. $18 billion. No, what? Made a mistake there. Equals that times that. Yeah, it's 8 billion. So there's the free lunch, and it's a free lunch in terms of increasing the money supply. And if we look at the United States are already using the discount rate to increase a deposit of $100 or $1 billion into as much as 10 billion by setting itself at 10% and lending out that additional money. And if that additional money is then redeposited, that can go up by 10. There's the Keynes income multiplier, which can increase it by another 5. And then there's, of course, just the making of money, quantitative easing. The USA has as much of an increase in the money supply as what I'm talking about here. But here we're talking about a network of businesses, not a country. Also, we're not looking to do 100% E at first. We're looking at 85%. And we're going to see that in the other spreadsheet. I'm going to stop it here because I think I've shown what I want to show. And we'll see you guys in another video. Thank you.